Hello everybody, welcome back to a new video. Today we're going to be doing a plugin overview. I made a little song with a plugin called Odin2 and we're going to do an overview of the plugin itself as well, and I'll do a little review. The plugin is in its beta stage, so it's very early in release. There aren't any presets for it and stuff like that, so they're still working on it, and I hope this video can contribute to not only maybe you downloading the plugin and giving it a try for yourself, but maybe also give the developers an idea of what I think about it, what they might want to consider changing about it. And without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, so here is the song I made. It's not a sidechain song for change here. I thought I would mix it up a little bit. Before we actually listen to it, I want to give a shout out to Lion, which is another YouTuber who showed off a video where he used the plugin, and he made some cool sounds with it as well. And yeah, I'll leave a link to his channel in the description so you can see and check it out. But this is the song I made with it. It's a little long, it's over 1 minute, so we'll start from here. Alright, so that should give you an idea of what the plugin sounds like. There's a lot of cool features in here, as you can hear. Not only did we make all those synth sounds and that really cool pad sound in the background, but also like the arpeggio and the plug for that second arpeggio. And we also made all the drum sounds in there. So everything you heard was made in Odin2, which is really impressive for a free plugin. So let's actually open it up and see what's going on here. Now this is a VST3 plugin. Currently it's only available in VST3 format. So what that allows you to do is some cool things which I want to go over. The first thing is that it allows you to resize the interface. Normally it opens up at 100%, but you can click the 150 and it will open up at 150%, which looks really cool, and for filming is a lot easier, and I really like this feature. I do know that other plugins have this as well. Serum has it as well, but it doesn't look all that great. Kind of the text doesn't look as sharp and stuff like that, so I prefer to have that on its normal 100%. But this looks actually very cool. So let's go over the plugin a little bit, and we're going to start off with this sound here. So that's going to be this pad sound. And it uses a lot of the features in there. First of all, we're using all 3 oscillators here. There's a whole different host of oscillator types you can choose from. In this case, we went with 3 analog oscillators. You also have wavetable oscillators, which looks like this. You have a whole host of wavetables you can choose from, and then you can morph between the different waves inside that wavetable, the different frames, I should say, that's the right terminology. And you can also modulate that if you want to with either mod envelope or LFO1, or in another way, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Then we have the multi-oscillator. Now I'm not quite sure how that works. You can choose between all kinds of different wavetables once again, and I think what it does is it allows you to detune multiple versions of it, but I haven't really had any cool sounds come out of this, which I couldn't make with the wavetable oscillator. I haven't really worked with this quite a lot. I've done another project with this, and I did this project, so I haven't had a lot of hands-on with this. But there's a lot more to it. We have a vector oscillator, which basically allows you to select a whole bunch of different wavetables. For example, from the wavetables itself, it allows you to select individual frames, as well as your classic stuff over here, and then it allows you to select chiptune waves here, as well as from these 3 oscillators, and I'll show you how that works in a little bit. So then there's the chiptune oscillator, which makes chiptune sounds, which is really cool actually. Then you have an FM oscillator, which for some reason takes a little bit to open up here. Oh, there it is. Oh, now it's gone. Here's an FM oscillator. You can select different wavetables as carriers, and then you can FM it, and you can also select different modulators over here. And we have a phase mod, which kind of works in the same way. It's just slightly programmed differently. In most other synthesizers, when you're FMing, you're basically doing phase modulation, because that's basically the same thing, only easier to program, from what I've heard. And it generates practically the same sound. So it's cool to have both. You can kind of hear the difference between them, but they should basically sound the same. After that, we have a noise generator, which is just very simple white noise. You cannot choose from different types. Which is one of the things I actually wrote down, is that there's just one type of noise, and you can't really color it. You can filter it, but you can't, for example, get pink noise or brown noise out of this, which you would normally be able to get if you've used Massive. You know that there's a whole host of different noise types which you can choose from, as well as in Serum you have the sample based noise generator, which also allows for importing your own. But this is really cool. Then we have a wave draw oscillator, which you can just go in and draw in your own wave like this. And for the longest time I didn't get it, because I would leave it like this and it wouldn't change, but you actually have to accept the change. And what that allows you to do is open up, for example, our vector oscilloscope, and then you can go in here, select wave draw oscillator 1, and now this will save this waveform, and you can go in and choose a different oscillator here. And let's say now you want to do chip draw, which allows you to do it in a more step sequence style, and you select this. Now you can go in here, select chip draw oscillator 3 for B, and now you can morph between the 2 waveforms you just made, which is really cool. And I think this will be a lot of fun experimenting with this thing. So yeah, then the final oscillator type is the spectra, which allows you to draw in a spectrum, kind of like additive synthesis, which works really well as well. And you also have to accept that. So that's that sound, or that's all the oscillators. Then it goes into the filter. Now the filter situation is a bit weird. I do really like it though. So basically what happens is you have to select your inputs here, and by default it goes into filter 1, which then goes to filter 2, and then it goes down to the filter 3, which is down here, and then it goes through your effects. And in between filter 1 and 2 and 3 you have the amplifier and a distortion unit. This is a really nice layout. Sometimes you have to keep in mind that if you do some routing that may be weird, that you have to, for example, activate this thing. Activating that means that this filter isn't going to, or is still going to filter 2, but it's also going directly out. By default it's not going directly out, and it's only going to filter 2, and from there it's going out, so keep that in mind. So that's a little bit weird to see. For example, what I would like to see is if you have filter 1 turned on here, that there would be another line maybe up here going over from this one to here, and that maybe if you click this, then the whole line kind of lights up and shows you what's going on, because now it's just this button and it's really hard to spot on first eye what's going on when you open up a patch or something. That would make it a lot easier to at a glance kind of find out what's going on and how the signal is actually being routed inside the patch that you're opening up. So as I mentioned, there's also a distortion unit, which has a little bit of just 3 algorithms here, which do sound really nice. And here you can see you have Drywet and an amplifier here. Now this is boost. It will just boost the volume into the distortion unit, kind of like a gain knob. but there's also an amplifier here which you can also use for that. There's a width knob which introduces a little bit of stereo width into the sound, I believe through the Haas effect from what I heard while experimenting with this thing, and it sounds really nice. You can really overdo this though, so it might be better if you were able to dial in the range around 0 a little bit easier, so kind of set it like an exponential knob, so the more you tweak it, the faster the rate of change is. So here by tweaking it just a little bit, it will be less tweaked, so you won't be able to overdo it so easily. And so that's that. Then it goes through filter 3, which is behind the distortion unit, kind of helps you with shaping of whatever the distortion unit is introducing. Something I haven't talked about is the filters too much. If I open this up, you can see there's the normal filters here, but they also have a whole bunch of special filters down here, which kind of emulate some older filters from analog synthesizers. And then we have a comb filter, a formant filter, and a ring modulator. And they all work very, very nicely and sound really, really cool. Finally, here we have the 4 effects that it comes with. We have a delay, a phaser, a chorus, and a flanger. Now what I would like to see for this particular synthesizer is also a reverb module. There should be enough space to kind of just cram it in here. Maybe add an extra button up here and add a reverb module. To show you what I mean, I've actually saved this particular pad sound which we made, which should now open up nicely again. And without the reverb, it just doesn't really sound nice. So that means that you always need to put on a reverb for these type of pad sounds in post-processing, and it would be really cool if you could just set that up in a preset and just ship it, so that if you give it to somebody, they don't have to put on an extra reverb for that. So without the reverb, it actually sounds like this. And you can hear with the reverb, it just sounds a lot nicer. So it would be cool if they could add that to the plugin as well. It would again give you a lot more capabilities of actually sending out presets and already having them sound great in the preset itself without having to do actual post-processing on them. So that would be my first recommendation here. Now I've made a list here. There's a few things that maybe I didn't quite understand or stuff like that. One thing I want to talk about is the modulation. So we have 2 ways of modulating things. For example, in every filter you're able to set the envelope mode or the envelope knob to modulate it through filter envelope here. But let's say you want to use a different one, for example mod envelope here. What you can then do is, for example, set let's see where it is, mod envelope here to filter 1's frequency, and then you can set it either positive or negative, which looks really cool, by the way. I really like how this modulation matrix works, and it's easy to clear out, stuff like that, and it's easy to work with. So that's are the modulation capabilities of it. Now one thing I really don't like about the plugin is the way editing modulation works. It's all kind of shoved in this really small space here. So you have 4 LFOs in here, and you can see it doesn't really look like anything is changing, but if I set this to a different wave, you can actually see that it's changing between the 2. And that also counts for example, here. We have multiple envelope modules here, kind of all stacked together. What I would like to see is have that more dragged out and have a little bit more space for the modulation, because it's a little bit finicky even at 150% to kind of work with and set the right frequencies and stuff like that. So that attention to detail is something I miss a little bit in here, and I would love to see that come in, and that would make it a lot easier to actually work with. The same could be said for the menus, which is something I've noticed. A lot of these things just have a cool menu here which you can choose from, but one particular thing that does not have a menu and does things a little bit differently is, for example, the timing and the delay. What you have to do is you have to set the timing manually here with these buttons, and you can set different timings like that. What I would love to see is to have the most common ones in the menu, which you can just open up by clicking on the middle one and allowing you to select it from a menu. Maybe not all of the timings that you could make in this case in this way, but the most common ones like 1/16, 1/8, 1/4, 1/2, that kind of stuff could all be in a menu, so you can quickly access them and easily modify them afterwards. And the same thing kind of goes the other way around too. If I want to quickly switch, for example, the distortion algorithm here, it would be really easy to just have two buttons next to this and allow me to click through it, but now I have to double click here if we want to test different distortions. It would be nicer to have that a little bit more streamlined. If you have seen my last plugin overview, I also talked there about streamlining your workflow when sound designing. It was about Genesis Pro. It's nowhere near as bad as that plugin was. That was really just annoying to work with overall, and they haven't really addressed any of the issues that not only me but also other people had with it. For example, it's still the same version, so I still can't actually use it because of the terrible noise stuff that's happening with it when I open it up. But this seems to be more open developer, and he's, from what I've heard, he is really into getting feedback and stuff like that. So I hope this reaches him and he can take those little things into account, which take a good plugin and turn it into a great plugin to work with. So that was the overview and kind of the review as well. I have some other points that I wanted to mention. One of the things here which I think would be a lot easier is if these effects didn't, or this particular delay effect would just have a dry wet knob instead of the individual dry and wet knobs. I think this is here so you can set your final volume, which is kind of redundant because you have a master output down here. So having a single dry wet knob would do the job here. And you can see all the other effects do have a dry wet knob, so it's a little bit weird that this has two individual knobs here, and I don't really know what that would be useful for. Yeah, no reverb, modulation control space too small. Oh yeah, the legato, we'll talk about that. Is there anything else? No, I'll talk about the legato. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to mention here is that up here you can set the difference between a mono and a mono and a polyphonic patch. So a mono patch will only play one note at a time, where polyphonic will play multiple, so chords, for example, in this pad. And the weird thing is that here it's called legato, but it's not actually doing legato. So to give you an example, here's a serum patch where there is a difference between mono and mono legato. If I play this in without legato, you can hear the modulation that I've set up for the filter happens for every note that I play. What legato does is if you're already playing a note, the second note will start from the modulation from that point the first note is on. So you will hear that the second note, if I start playing it, will not have that filter sweep on it. This is something you currently cannot do inside Odin2. The difference between mono and legato therefore does not have to do with the amount of notes you play, but with the way the modulation is set up once you start playing notes. If I actually turn on mono, you can hear that it will actually stop playing the first note and then continue on, or it will stop playing the first note and repeat the modulation like this. So that's something I wanted to mention. Either call this mono, because that's really what it is. If I put it to mono, you can just hear that it's just going to be able to play just one note. And it also does legato when you turn it into mono, but there's no way to do legato when you're playing polyphonic notes, which is something you might want to do. inside the sound. So that was my last critique on the plugin. That's a little bit of a longer video than usual. So was my last plugin review, but I hope this helps, and I hope you find this plugin useful. You should get it. I'll put a link down in the description. And for now, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you next time. Bye bye.